So as you heard in the introduction, we're taking a little left turn for this first half of 2025 for the podcast, and I'm looking for people who are going to bring me skill sets and experience that are going to bring resiliency. That's going to help us navigate any kind of change, anything that's happening out in the world that doesn't kind of fit our plan, and how do we show up our best as that happens. And when I met my next guest, just something in my gut told me this guy has a story. This guy has some expertise and some experience for you, no matter what's coming up in your world. So I asked John Little to be on the podcast so we can have a frank and candid conversation about how we can be our best in almost every situation that comes up. Officially, John has over 25 years of experience as a business leader, entrepreneur, and consultant. He's developed and coached hundreds of talented people who have since advanced to executive director, vice presidents, senior managers, CEOs, individual businesses. He has so many credentials, I can't even name them all. He's certified in DISC, Myers-Briggs. One that's really interesting to me is fundamental interpersonal relationship orientation. I think we need to do a whole podcast on that. With his extensive experience in corporate equity, inclusion, belonging, and engagement strategies, John combines his vast leadership knowledge and coaching skills to help elevate seasoned and emergent leaders. Well, you sound like me, only with more certificates.
And less hair. Thank you, Mark.
No, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for agreeing to bring, kind of not your usual fare and bring your humanity into this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity, and that's the any chance that I get to talk about people, with people, to help people. I certainly will jump at that. So I'm excited for the opportunity to talk with you and your audience.
Yeah, everything that I looked, everything I researched about you, I felt like this is a guy that I want standing next to me, no matter what it is I'm doing. So that's why I want to give everybody who's listening you. So I'm curious. We're heading into a new year. What do you see is going to be the challenges for people in business and in life this year?
Yeah, it's a great question, because looking ahead to 2025, I feel like we're entering into, in so many different ways, we're entering into unprecedented times, right? We're going to see and experience things that we don't have any file for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, we're already starting to see it. Certainly don't want to lean into the tragic aspects of life, but with things that we've seen with natural disasters, things that we've seen, between groups, it's a lot that we're coming out of. And as we're going forward into 2025, this is a new horizon that we just haven't explored. And I think that as people try to figure out like what's next, it's just human nature. When we're faced with things that are causing uncertainty or that are causing concern, we always want to lean back on prior experience, or we want to have something that we can reference that we've seen or done, or that a friend has experienced or something. We're stepping into places that I don't think we have any idea what it's going to mean. And I think a part of what we need to do to navigate through that is to not only lean into ourselves, gain more knowledge about ourselves. I know we're going to talk more about this deeper, but also seeking and finding community, because that often is what helps us get through things, is when we can find community, so we don't feel as though we're on our own. We don't feel as though we're isolated. We don't feel as though we have to figure out everything by ourselves all the time. So I think kind of a combination of a number of those things, finding that resilience within, but also finding people that we can connect with, to share these experiences and learn together.
Yeah, you said something really interesting there for me, because I think this is one of the few times, I've been around here 62 and a half years, and I don't remember being in a time where the future looked like I didn't have a reference to fall back on. Like, I know what I've been through a recession. I know what to do in a recession. I know what to do in those times. And when you wrote back to me, you wrote there's going to be a lot of people looking for anchors to take hold of and won't be able to find them where they traditionally have been found. And you just said that, in a different way now. Um, what what does that mean? What does that mean to you to go forward and kind of, not have anything to any history to know how to handle?
It It puts me honestly in a place a little bit of, I'll use fear, but that's probably too big of a word. More maybe reluctance.
Mm.
It's there's some hesitancy to step forward because without knowing what I'm stepping into or stepping towards, I may not feel as confident moving in that direction. So when I think about the anchors that I've always been able to lean into, I describe my personal brand as being kind, loyal, consistent, and solution oriented. Right. So whenever I've had things that I needed to figure out and navigate through, I could say, okay, well, I can count on, because this is what I've experienced, this is what I've been taught, this is what society has shown me, that if I'm kind, loyal, consistent, and solution oriented, that I'll be okay somehow,
Mm.
even if I can't exactly predict the future. I don't know that I can lean into those four anchors anymore, right? And I feel fortunate that through the work that I've done on myself and the work that I do professionally with helping people discover these things, like I'm able to label those four things really clearly as my anchors. They're not everybody is able to do that. Not everybody has that clarity to be able to label that. And so when we're put into positions where we're experiencing things that we don't really know how to navigate, and we also don't have something specific to lean into where we say, I've done this in the past and I can use this to guide me. It's just like kind of like walking on jellyfish. Like it's not a good experience for anybody when that happens.
Right. So the what I hear from that is expect to be uncomfortable, expect
Definitely.
to be unsure, and that kind of reflects how I've been looking at it. Is I've been spending a lot of time on my spiritual, and I'll use air quotes for my spiritual groundedness in to make sure that I am okay with and comfortable with not knowing, being unsure, even being scared of things, of not liking things. And how
Hmm.
can I make sure that no matter any of those emotions, any of those states of being showed up, can I be okay no matter what those things show up? And it's been serving me. It's been serving me quite a bit. Personally, for yourself, how are you preparing yourself for the unknown?
Um, I'm spending more time being introspective. I'm spending more time really on mindfulness. That's something that I've put an emphasis on this past year. So I've had a spiritual life. Part of that spiritual life is doing things that I know connect me to, higher power, greater being. And so with that, like every week, I spend time, and I'm fortunate enough, and I knock on wood or whatever this desk is made out of. That I live in proximity to a beach because I'm in South Florida. So like every Sunday, I take an hour and I go to the beach. I go by myself. I grab a coffee or tea or whatever, and I go and I just spend that time reflecting on the week that's passed and preparing for the week ahead. And I've done that every Sunday since for the past 7 months. And I was telling a good friend the other day that has been life changing because that's helping me get centered. That's helping me prepare for the unknown. That's helping me just kind of get that mental reset that's needed. And I think a lot of people can use that example. Maybe you don't have proximity to a beach or whatever, but like, what is a place that brings you peace that you can go to and just spend some time with your mind? And it doesn't mean you have to go out. I know not everyone has the ability to do that. Just like, but finding that time intentionally to be with yourself, to reset, to be mindful, that has so many benefits that I can't even articulate how great that's been. And
Yeah.
that's part of what I do is that's kind of my self-care
About daily?
to make
How
sure.
about what do you do daily?
Daily, it's kind of like micro versions of that, to be honest with you. It's making sure that I'm taking time to either take a walk or taking time. One of the things that I enjoy to do recreationally is cooking, right? So it's when I'm in the kitchen, like I'm present, and
Mm.
that allow and I'm creative. I'm not just following a recipe. Those type of things feed my soul, so those are the things that I've found tremendous value in to get me in a place that allows me to be positive and allows me to look at the world, not as as everything is wonderful, but like, how can I carve my space in the world so that it's better for me and for those that I impact and influence? How can I make it better for them as well?
Yeah, for me, I spend an hour on my pillow every morning.
Hmm.
Not necessarily. So I don't go to the beach. I have a pillow in the middle of my office, and I sit down and I either read or I listen to something, or I journal, or I listen and doodle, and then I sit and meditate. But I've told people over and over again, Mark J. Silverman doesn't come out of bed Zen Master Flash. And I don't come grounded and centered and loving everybody. I'm pretty freaking grumpy in the morning.
Hmm.
I get myself right. What we do for a living as coaches, showing up for other people in the way we do. For me, it's very clear if I haven't done my work, I can't show up in another person's life in the way that I want to. So I know that that's part, like if I was a swimmer, I'd have to do my laps. This is
Yeah.
me doing my laps, but it helps me so much, as you said, have that mast when things are blowing, that I know what my values are. I know what I care about. I know who I am
Yeah.
when things are going on around me. And that's been the unshakable thing, no matter what's happened in my life. Uh,
Yeah. I'll share with you real quickly, and I know we hadn't talked, about this, but personally, one of the biggest moments in my life was a therapy session that I had, and it's something that transformed my mindset, and every day it's valuable. We did talk a little bit about that we both are dads. I have a 10-year-old son now. He's turning 10 in a couple of days, and he's on the autism spectrum. And my only son, I waited till later in life to have a child, my only child. And so, of course, I had expectations of what that experience was going to be like, right? I had expectations of what we were going to do as father and son, how he was going to be, how I was going to be. And the reality is, it's vastly different than I could have or would have anticipated. And that was something that, quite candidly, I struggled with a lot, after his diagnosis and as he was, developing differently than I had expected. It was hard. And I was talking to a therapist about it, and she said, "John, you have to mourn the expectation of what was, and accept and celebrate what is, instead of focusing on what could have been. Focus on what is." And that just changed my mindset like that. So now every day when he gets off the bus, I'm so excited. Uh, just the fact that, like, he is who he is, right? And I celebrate him and love him for who he is. And we have a much closer and tighter bond than I probably would have otherwise, because he would have been in his world doing his things, and I would have been in my world doing things, and we would have done things together. But now, like, when we're present together, we're always so super present. So that has helped me, like, when things are challenging or tough. Part of resilience that we talked about, that's part of where my resilience comes from, is I don't worry about what is or what could have been or what isn't. I'm focused on what's going on right now. I'm focused on what is, what I have control on impacting and influencing. So I know I just took a different off ramp than we were going, but just thinking back on your question, that just kind of came to mind as, like, it's not something that I tangibly do, but it's such a mindset that's pervasive every single day.
and I think one that had the stakes not been so high, you might not have been able to master the way you have, because
100%.
the stakes are really high. And what I heard from that is you didn't just go to being in the present. You didn't just go to what's great now. You mourned, what you lost in your mind. You
Right.
lost the hopes and dreams, so that you could let that move through you. Michael Singer, the writer of The Untethered Soul and Living Untethered, talks about how that stuff is there in our heart. That stuff is there in our psyche.
Mhm.
And if we push it down, it stays there and comes out sideways. If we
Yeah.
let it go work through, then we can move forward to the present and live, the way you did. And I think your joy today is because you did that work and do
Yeah.
it daily.
And I was given permission to experience that, right? And at some level, I probably needed that. A wiser me would have given myself that permission. But that's that was something that I needed. I needed someone to give me permission to mourn that. So that could be something that people could be challenged with, is they feel like they have to get permission to do or to feel or certain ways. Like you can give yourself that permission.
How, how many men get that if they lost a job,
Yeah.
because again, we take our identities and attach them to our success and who we are,
Yeah.
and before they hit the ground to find another job or do they take the time to mourn? Like, that sucked.
Yeah.
Going, oh no, you're better off without them. That sucked. I
That's right.
talked to so many people, and then in the wildfires, like, I know 10 people, at least 10 people personally, who lost everything in the wildfires so far,
Wow.
that I know of.
Wow.
And and a bunch of spiritual leaders that have lost everything there, and I'm watching them do exactly what you said. And they said that I took some time to mourn the loss of everything. Now
Yeah.
I'm ready to rebuild.
Yep.
Now I'm ready to deal with the hand that I'm dealt, and I will do so joyfully. But I had to mourn the loss of my, community center or whatever it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're talking to your folks, what are they worried about coming up in business?
I think there's still a lot of people who are struggling with what's going to happen with many job markets, with many jobs, I should say, not necessarily job markets, but with many jobs. I work a lot in the HR space. The specter of AI in HR has a lot of people concerned
Hmm.
about the unknown. Like, are there going to be, because it's moving so quickly, are there going to be technological advancements in AI that's going to replace the tasks that I do? Am I going to be able to keep up with the pace of things so I'm still viable on the job market if I do find myself out of a job? Organizations that I work with, one of the things that I've really realized over the past few months is the issues that organizations are struggling with still from a people lens: turnover, reduced productivity, decreased engagement, increased legal risk from behaviors of managers. All of those things have roots in imposter syndrome, right?
Hmm.
And so when organizations are still trying to figure those out on a transactional level, when something comes out, how do I put out that fire? When something comes up, how do I take care of this issue? There are a few organizations that are starting to pull the lens back a little bit and see these are more global issues than individual issues. So and I've had a couple of conversations with companies, like, how do we get ahead of these problems? How do we get ahead of these issues so they don't crop up and create and become much larger issues? But that's primarily what I'm hearing from the people that I'm speaking with so far.
What are the attributes of people who are doing it right? The people who are pulling back the lens and doing it well.
Self-awareness is a big one.
What does that mean?
Understanding tangibly and intentionally doing the work on themselves to understand where their fears come from, what some of those fear-based behaviors look like, how they act when they're under or encountering stress, and then recognizing what are the tools to be able to navigate through that. Labeling the emotions that people feel. It's funny when we go to work in corporate America, there still is some prevailing notion that when we walk in the door that we're supposed to be robots, that we're not supposed to have emotions, and that emotions don't impact and influence what we do on a daily basis. So we're scared of being replaced by the robots, but we're also expected to behave like robots. But that's probably a different conversation for a different day. But that, like, the ones that are doing it well, like, some of those attributes are that self-awareness and really kind of digging deep into it, being able to recognize how they can individually be resilient, because everyone's strength comes from a different place. So part of that process is, if I do need to be strong and brave and courageous, like, where's the well that I'm digging into to get that from? Because again, that's something that is a conscious, intentional process that people need to go through to figure out, because it just doesn't come naturally to some folks.
How do you get people? How do you convince people to do that work? Because for me, a big part of my coaching practice are people who are told they need coaching,
Uh-huh.
and either because they're not, they're just immature in leadership and haven't learned those skills, or they're been super successful in a bull in a china closet and they haven't been introspective, right? And they've
Right.
been told work on these things.
Hmm.
And so I have a willing participant in that self discovery. How do you market, uh, you know, getting introspective?
That's a challenge, to be honest with you. That's one of the hardest things to do, because a lot of times people don't know that they need to be introspective until they're told by someone on the outside that they need to. Part of how I have been working through that, though, is by helping people to, like, when I market, I don't just say that I solve X problem. Like, I tie it to an element of imposter syndrome, right? I tie it to, if you're not speaking up in meetings because you're not confident, like, here's the root reason for that, right? So people can identify, and they know on some level that they're not speaking up, or they're not innovative and not innovating, or they're not being creative, or they're not, they don't feel confident. They may not necessarily say it. And if I put a post on LinkedIn, like, who's not feeling confident, comment below. No one's gonna no one's gonna respond to that.
I'm
They're
not
not putting
confident
that out
enough to
there.
let people know I'm not confident.
Exactly. But if I can give examples of the behaviors that they recognize, then I can get to the root, and that's what draws people in. That's what people can identify. Say, okay, yeah, I see myself in that instance. I see where that's a challenge for me, and that tends to be working more than just kind of saying, you're not confident.
Right.
Talk about
How
it.
do you
Yeah.
help people find confidence?
Um, One of the things that I love to do is have people think about those moments in their life where they have felt confident, where they have felt successful, where they felt at their highest and best, and then, like, what were the things that fed into that? Like, so let's not talk about, using the Al Bundy example, dating ourselves. Like, let's not talk about the 4 touchdowns that you scored, in the state championship at Polk High. Like, let's talk about, what did you do to prepare for that? What were the things that you did in order to be ready for that moment? Like, you didn't just show up and it happened, right? So that's how people can
Hmm.
can tap into those areas where they were confident, because, okay, I can see where I've been successful before. I can see some of those patterns, and I can replicate some of those things. At least I can replicate the mindsets and the behaviors that helped me be successful in the past.
I heard a story about Alex Hermosi, who is this marketing savant that
Yeah.
has millions of followers. Everybody loves him. He and his wife are the workaholic marketing savants. Uh,
Yeah.
but he did when he launched his book. He did a online webinar, whatever, and crushed it. Like crushed it to the point that people are studying how well he did.
Hmm.
What I didn't know was he did that webinar 100 times before he did the webinar. Here's a man who just reeks confidence. He's
Yeah.
Alex Hermosi, like he doesn't need to practice, and 100 times. And I remember also going in and watching two of the best salesmen in my company. I remember I thought of them as just kind of wild cowboys and everything. And I was there late one night and they were practicing their presentation for the next morning. Right. So,
Hmm.
of course, they're going to show up more confident.
Right, right, absolutely. Yeah, and that's, we don't see a lot of the times the things that happen behind the scenes. We see the end result, and we judge the end result, but we don't see the process very frequently. And that can be one of two things, right? For some people, it can be intimidating, like, oh, I'll never be able to do that, because all you're seeing is the end result. But you can do all of the same work to get to that point, right? People I've talked with, when they see me present, they say, "Oh, wow, like, it just seems so natural. It seems so easy." It's like, well, yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Like, you didn't see you didn't see all the stumbles. You didn't see all the ums and ahs. You didn't see me forgetting entire segments of what I was going to talk about, and then realizing I've got an 8-minute hole to fill, and I've got nothing. Like
Yeah.
you didn't see those things.
You
You know,
gotta suck. You gotta be willing to suck.
yes, absolutely. Hey, look, I tell the story, all the time. I played high school football for 4 years. We won 3 games. Like, you don't have to be a math major to figure out that wasn't good. But I learned so much from that experience. I learned about the value of process. I learned about the value of continuing to show up every day. I learned about the value of, even if you put in your best effort, you're not always going to get the result that you want, right? Those lessons have served me. It's been a long time since I've been in high school. It's those lessons have served me so well over my entire life, because, like, I get it. I get that you have to do those things in order to get the result. And even the result's not always going to be perfect. But if I can continue to chase that result by doing the work, that's going to position me much better to be successful than if I just looked at the outcome and said, I don't know how I'm going to get there.
Hmm. Yeah, my ADHD and neurodiverse listeners, when I hear things like that, it always tightens me up because I have severe ADD, and
Mm.
practicing and going over the same thing over and over again and being prepared is such a heavy lift for me. I'm not one of those influencers on LinkedIn who have their shit together, right? I've had all of my success with all my ducks running around the room instead of
Mhm.
being in a row. And if, and I tell people, if I can do it, if I can do it enough, to be able to put together a book, best-selling book, a 600 and something podcast, right? You just have to find those things. You don't have to get organized in your whole entire life to become good at this stuff. Just find that one thing that you could muster up the willpower to get good at it.
Yeah.
And put your efforts into that, because other things in my life aren't as well put together as some of the things that people see. It's because I put that effort into just those things, and then other
Yeah.
things can fall apart.
Yeah. But I think here's what's important with that, Mark, and I love that you shared that. Like, I don't want people to miss what you said, that they see the polish, but then there's other parts that may not be as polished, but that's still authentic, right? So people can feel
Mhm.
like, if I don't have everything figured out, if I don't have all my S together, then that means that, I can't portray a certain image to the world, or can't put certain things out into the world, because then it wouldn't be authentic. Like, no, we're all a hot mess. Like, I just don't open the closet door. Like, I don't show you everything, right? There's a reason the camera's pointing this way and not that way.
100%.
Because the rest of my room over there, like, nobody wants to see that. But that's authentic, right? And we have to. That's part of that self awareness that I talk about, and self awareness. Part of that is self acceptance, that we're not perfect and that it's okay. And grace is something that we need to give ourselves more than we do. And kind of taking us full circle to the things that we're going to experience this year that we haven't experienced before, not having some of those anchors. Like, we have to be cognizant of giving ourselves grace, that we're figuring things out on the way. And just keep showing up. That's kind of my mantra every day, is just keep showing up. Like, today may be great. It may be in the crapper, but you know what I'm going to do tomorrow? I'm going to show up. I'm going to keep showing up. And that's what we have to do for ourselves, for the people in our lives, for the people that we care about and people that care about us. Just keep showing up. That's the most important thing that you can do. Because that gives you an opportunity to move things more in the direction that you want them to go.
I love that. When I need perspective, I think about the fact that there's nothing really going on Mars or the moon. In fact, they haven't found a planet where there's anything going on anywhere. Everything that's going on is going on here, and we got to be here. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I get to drive around in a rover on this planet and see what's going on here. I really have to take it down to like the lowest common denominator some days.
Yeah.
I'm alive, I'm breathing. This is great. All right, I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you a question that might be putting you on a spot. It might be tough.
Okay.
I've already answered it, and you're welcome to repeat your answer. I'm curious, in all your life and all your experience, what do you know that you think everybody else should know? What have you learned in life that if it was your last breath, you just want everybody to know?
It's a great question. It's something that I learned just a few years ago, coming out of a very difficult relationship. Um, I was in a professional role that I was okay, but I wasn't really fulfilled. Um, and I was talking with a good friend of mine one night, and she said, "John, you have to choose you." And I like paused, and I was like, What do you like? What does that mean?" She's like, "You have to consciously make the choices that are going to serve you and serve your son and serve the things that are important to you." And like why that resonated so much with me was kind of getting back to the permission word, right? um I always thought that if but by choosing me, that would make me selfish, and that's the
Mhm.
last thing that I wanted. And through that conversation, I understood what she was saying. She was saying, choose you so you can be the best you. It's not about being selfish, because it's not about choosing you over someone else. It's not about putting yourself on a higher plane or a different place than someone else. It's just like make the conscious choices for you that are going to allow you to be your best. So if I had that, what do I know that I want everyone to know? It would be that. It would be choose you, not from a standpoint of being selfish, not from a standpoint of taking away from anybody else, not from a standpoint of ego or from a standpoint of status or position, but like make the choices that are going to support you being your best self. Because to your last point, Mark, like we're here on earth and we get to experience this, but like there's a finish line, and we don't get a do-over. So every day, that's the thing that we can do. That's the thing that we can focus on, is how can I do things? How can I choose ways for me to be my best self, for me and for those that I influence and impact.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's beautiful. John, if people want more of you, where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you. Primarily LinkedIn is a place that people can find me the most. LinkedIn.com, Big John Little is where you can find me on there. And I'm sure we'll have links there. My website, thewinnersedgecoaching.com, is another place that you can find me. But yeah, LinkedIn is a place that I meet and interact with people for the most part. That's my main platform of choice.
I'm going to call myself Big Mark Silverman now. We'll put all of that in the show notes so that you can find John and just kind of soak up all his goodness. John, thanks for bringing your heart and your wisdom and your experience to the show.
Absolutely. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and appreciate the chance to speak with you and to your audience.
I appreciate that. And everybody else, thank you for your time and attention. I know it's precious. I hope these episodes are uplifting. I'm really serious about some of these conversations, but it's because I want you to have joy, happiness. I want you to thrive no matter what happens in the world. And I think it's all going to be good, as long as we are at our best when we meet the moment. I love you a ton. Have a great rest of the day.